My name's Lena. I'm 34, and right now, I'm carrying a weight in my chest that won't let me breathe easy. It's been months since I told him what I did, what I betrayed. I begged him to forgive me after the affair, but the words he spat back shattered something deeper than I ever imagined. He called me a 304, like I was nothing but dirt beneath his feet, and said the marriage was dead. I want you to understand, before all this, we had a world that felt safe. When we met, he made me feel like I was the only woman alive. His hands were electric, warm and steady, and his kisses used to make my skin tingle with something more than just affection. Our laughter filled rooms. The late-night talks stretched until dawn, our bodies tangled in comfort and need. It was thrilling in a way that felt effortless, like falling into a pool of calm on a chaotic day. But love, I learned, doesn't always stay that way. It started with small things, a lingering glance that didn't quite reach his eyes, a hand that hesitated before touching mine. I'd lean into his chest for a hug and feel the tightness in his arms, like I was holding onto something slipping through his fingers. The kisses grew colder, less urgent, as if we were rehearsing affection rather than feeling it. One night, curled up in bed, his body barely brushing mine, I realized I was craving something I couldn't name, a spark, a touch that meant more than routine. The moment it all hit me, the truth I couldn't deny, was so ordinary it almost fooled me. We were lying awake, side by side, his back turned to me. I reached out for him, the same way I had countless times before. But he didn't move to hold me. Instead, he let his hand fall away like it was a burden. In that silence, I knew. We were already losing each other, and I was slipping away from myself. He's a firefighter. Always has been. Brave, steady, the kind of man who faces danger without blinking, but somehow, inside our home, the heat between us has cooled into something flickering and uncertain. One Friday night, after a long week of his shifts and my work deadlines, he came home tired but still trying. I remember the way he slipped into the kitchen, pulled me close with that tired, familiar grin. His hands went to my waist, firm, insistent, like he wanted to remind me I was still his. But it wasn't what I needed. I needed to be seen first. To have my fears, my loneliness acknowledged before our bodies tried to bridge the distance. Instead, I froze. The way he touched me felt too much, too fast, like a bandage slapped over a wound that hadn't been cleaned. I wanted to say, hold me, but first hold my heart. But the words stuck, tangled with shame and frustration. How do you explain to someone who saves strangers from burning buildings that the biggest fire is the one inside you, starving for something more than skin-deep connection? He kissed my neck, and I felt a sharp pang, not desire, but a desperate ache for something real. When I tried to pull away gently, he paused, confused. "What's wrong?" he asked, voice low, worried. I struggled. "I need us to be close in a way we're not right now. Not just this." He frowned, stepping back slightly, like I'd just spoken a language he didn't understand. And in that moment, it felt like we were worlds apart. His love was physical, immediate, a shield from pain. Mine was quieter, waiting for trust to catch up. I wanted to tell him that touching me without feeling me first was like trying to hold water in your hands. But the silence between us stretched, heavier than any words. It was one of those nights I realized that love alone isn't enough, not without the courage to be vulnerable, to say what hurts even when it's messy. And maybe that was the hardest thing to admit. I was reaching for something I wasn't sure he could give. One evening, he came up behind me in the kitchen, arms wrapping around my waist like he used to. The scent of his aftershave mixed with the faint smell of smoke from the station lingered on his skin. He pressed a kiss to my neck, soft and familiar, but instead of melting into it, I stiffened. My body didn't respond the way I wanted it to. There was a coldness settling deep inside me, a quiet rebellion. He chuckled, giving my hip a playful smack, like he was trying to pull me back from some invisible distance. "Hey, you're not running away this time, are you?" I forced a smile, but inside I flinched. That slap, light as it was, Felt like a reminder, like I was nothing more than a prize to be claimed. I wanted to lean into him, wanted to feel his warmth, but my mind spun with doubts. Was he touching me because he loved me, or because he just needed release? Was I just a body to fill his nights? When he reached for my face, cupping my cheek, I let him, but the kiss that followed was empty to me. His lips moved against mine, but I felt nothing, no spark, no flutter, just a hollow space where desire used to live. I pulled back slightly, searching his eyes for something I couldn't name. "Lena," he whispered, voice soft but concerned. "I'm fine," I said quickly, hoping to mask the confusion swirling inside me. Later, as I lay awake, his breathing steady beside me, my mind wouldn't stop racing. I wanted to want him, God, how I wanted to, but every touch felt like a question I couldn't answer. Why does everything have to turn into sex? We were supposed to have a quiet dinner, just the two of us, candles flickering, the kind of night he said would remind us why we're still here. But halfway through, I felt the old ache twisting inside me, sharper than ever. He reached across the table, fingers brushing mine, and said, "You've been distant lately. Talk to me, Lena." I wanted to. I wanted to tell him how invisible I felt, how every touch felt like a demand instead of comfort, how the walls between us were closing in. But instead, the words tangled up with all the shame I'd been swallowing. "I'm not some 304 you can just forgive and forget," I blurted out, voice cracking. "You think saying it's dead makes it true? Like I'm just a mistake you want to erase." His fork dropped. Silence slammed into the room like a fist. His eyes flickered, hurt, confusion, maybe anger. "That's not what I meant," he said quietly, but I wasn't done. "I begged you to forgive me, but maybe the real problem is that you never really wanted to. Maybe you decided the marriage was dead the moment I stopped feeling like the woman you knew." Tears spilled over and I couldn't stop them. I covered my face with shaking hands, feeling every word cut deeper than the last. He sat back, silent. Later, alone in the bathroom, staring at my red, puffy reflection, I hated myself for losing control. For the mess I'd become. For the part of me that broke his heart and my own. Guilt gnawed at me, thick and unrelenting. Was this what forgiveness looked like? A death sentence whispered between two people who once swore they'd never let go? The days slipped by like shadows across the walls, long, cold, and heavy. We moved through the house like strangers sharing the same space, but living in separate worlds. His silence was louder than any argument we'd had. Sometimes I caught him staring out the window, his jaw tight, eyes distant. I saw the weight he carried, the exhaustion from the firehouse. Yes, but something else, too. Pain. A hurt I'd helped right but didn't fully understand. One evening, I found him sitting alone in the living room, hands wrapped around a mug, shoulders hunched. When I sat beside him, he didn't look at me. The distance between us was a chasm neither of us dared cross. "I miss you," I whispered, voice barely steady. He finally met my eyes, and for a moment, I saw the man beneath the anger, the man who loved me, scared and broken. "I don't know how to fix this," he said. Neither did I. Every night, guilt gnawed at me like a restless animal. I longed for the warmth we'd lost, but feared reaching out would only push him further away. The affair, the words he said, 304, marriage dead, they echoed in my mind, twisting my hope into something fragile. I lay awake one night, torn between two truths, the fear of losing him forever, and the fear that trying might only deepen the wounds. Maybe love wasn't enough. Maybe forgiveness was a door we both had to choose to open. And maybe, just maybe, I wasn't ready to close the door yet. Weeks later, after a long silence filled with everything we hadn't said, he finally spoke. It wasn't easy. Words stumbled out like reluctant confessions. We sat on the worn-out couch, the room dim except for the soft glow of the table lamp. "I'm not sure I can forget what happened," he said, voice low. "But maybe we can find a way to not let it kill us." I nodded, heart pounding with fragile hope. We talked, really talked, for the first time in months. about hurt, about anger, about what we needed to feel safe again. We set boundaries, made promises not to rush, to listen instead of defend. That night, as I lay in bed, he came in quietly and wrapped his arms around me, not demanding, just holding. No words, just warmth. His breath steady against my hair, a silent apology and a tentative promise all in one. It wasn't perfect. It wouldn't be. But in that moment, I felt something I hadn't in a long time, a flicker of us. Broken, yes, but maybe still alive. If you ask me what I've learned from all this, the pain, the mistakes, the silences, it's that love isn't a fairy tale. It's messy. It's raw. It's sometimes about holding on when you want to let go, and other times, knowing when to step back to protect what's left of yourself. I begged him to forgive me, and he called me a 304. That cut deeper than I ever imagined. But what surprised me most was how fragile we both became after that, the way love can shatter and still somehow whisper that maybe, just maybe, there's a way to piece it back together. I don't have all the answers. I don't know if we'll make it or if the marriage is truly dead. But I do know this. I'm trying to find myself again with or without him. And maybe that's where real forgiveness begins, when you can face yourself in the mirror, scars and all, and still choose to keep going. That's my story. Maybe it'll be yours someday too. You know, standing here now, looking back at all of it, the mistakes, the silence, the anger, I realize how complicated love really is. It's not just about the good moments or the passion we once had. Sometimes it's about the wounds we inflict on each other, the things left unsaid, and the ways we try, and sometimes fail, to heal. I begged him to forgive me after the affair. He called me a 304 and said the marriage was dead. Those words haunt me. But what haunts me more is how close we came to losing ourselves completely, how easy it was to slip into silence and resentment. I don't know if we're truly fixed, or if we ever will be. But I do know this, I'm learning to face myself honestly, to accept the messy parts of love and pain. Maybe that's enough for now. If you're listening, and you're struggling too, just know you're not alone. And sometimes, just sometimes, that's where healing begins. 3.